After 25 years of marriage, the time we had been waiting for had finally arrived, the dream of owning our own home. "This is it, Pam. Our long-awaited home." I couldn't help but burst into laughter watching Ryder sniffing the floor with a deep, satisfied breath. Just as we relaxed, a pleasant doorbell rang, ding-dong. It must have been the new furniture and appliances being delivered. Ryder and I exchanged a smug look. Trying to contain my excitement, I opened the front door. "Thank you for your..." Oh. Unexpectedly, it was my in-laws standing there. Why? How? My mind went blank. In a panic, I dashed out barefoot. "Pam! Where are you going?" Ignoring my husband's call, I kept running. I could feel the eyes of passers-by on me. Near our new home was a railroad crossing, and I ran there frantically. From afar, I could faintly hear the clanging warning bells. The barrier gate was slowly descending right in front of me. The flashing red lights caught my eye, and I realized a train was coming. But my legs wouldn't stop. I had to escape. In the next moment, I found myself jumping into the crossing. A woman nearby was reaching for the emergency button. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. "My name is Pam. I just turned 47, and I've been noticing some changes in my health. It's strange, I felt fine until recently, but menopause is tough." While getting ready for work, I muttered this to myself in the mirror, but the words just vanished into thin air. Even now, married, I work full-time and live with my husband Ryder in an apartment. We don't have kids, but life as a couple isn't bad. I think I find a sense of purpose in my job. "Pam, breakfast is ready. Coming right now." I put away my makeup and headed to the living room. Ryder works at a factory, so he never works from home. Both of us leave the house at a set time daily, and although we usually come home on time, sometimes it's a bit late. We met during college. Sitting next to each other in class was the start. He had forgotten his textbook and asked if he could share mine. Later, I learned that it was a lie he made up because he had fallen for me at first sight. I never imagined I would marry him, but that was how our relationship began. Honestly, I hadn't planned on dating or marrying. This was due to the environment I grew up in. My father, who has since passed away, was a very violent man. When he argued with my mother, dishes and forks would scatter all over the room. Crying together with my mother as we cleaned up was not a one-time occurrence. From a young age, I thought men were unpredictable and hard to handle. However, as I got to know Ryder, I realized that was a misconception. He is the complete opposite of my father, very gentle and soft-spoken. And he always puts me first. "Pam, you are the most important thing to me." Attracted by his words, I accepted his proposal. Being with him, I too felt more at peace, imagining our future together. We had a dream from the beginning of our marriage. That was to buy a house and live together. We had looked at many properties and searched for land, but we never found the right one. Neither Ryder nor I could feel this is it about any of them. That wasn't the only problem. We had hardly any savings. Even if we took out a mortgage, considering the moving expenses and all, we needed a substantial amount of money. If we bought a house without that money, there was a real risk we wouldn't be able to make ends meet. When the real estate agent told us this, it was a real shock. "I'm sorry. If only I had earned more." Ryder apologized, looking remorseful. "No, it's okay. You find fulfillment and pride in your job, so don't worry about it. But it was our dream. Then, we'll just have to save up from now on. And, while we saved, we might find a property we liked. Properties are about timing and fate, after all." I convinced Ryder, and we decided to keep looking for a property while saving up. Since then, we've moved several times and now live in this apartment. It's relatively new, about 5 years old, and just the right size for two. The apartment has a delivery box, which makes it convenient for online shopping, which I liked. Also, this apartment is just a 2-minute walk from my in-laws' house. We chose to live close by just in case something happened to them. Neither of us is young anymore, and it's not strange if something happens. It's best if nothing happens, but it's also important to be prepared, as Ryder and I discussed. However, I sometimes wonder if it was the right decision. Ever since we moved here, my in-laws come by often. When asked why, they say they want to see us or talk to us, just trivial things. For the first few weeks, they would notify us before visiting. But lately, they just show up without warning. That happened today too. "Pam, I came to see you." Over the intercom, my mother-in-law Shelley smiled brightly. I hadn't asked her to come, but somehow there was an air of, oh, the useless daughter-in-law. Behind her, my father-in-law Jim stood still, waiting as if it were only natural for the door to open. "Open up quickly. It's cold out here in the wind. It's early spring, so the strong wind is still chilly. But it's not right for them to just show up uninvited." I swallowed the words that had almost escaped my lips. "I'll open the door now." After unlocking the chain, I opened the door, and they briskly walked in. The first thing my mother-in-law said was, "Well, what? You don't have the heating on? Since it's sunny, we don't need it. You come unannounced and expect to be entertained? If you had let me know ahead of time, I would have turned it on. Always an excuse ready, aren't you?" "Fine, I'll do it myself." Grumbling about how inconsiderate I am, he went ahead and turned on the air conditioner himself. "Hey! Please don't just turn it on." I want to save on the electric bill, but this makes it pointless. It was completely unexpected for my in-laws to show up before noon. Just my luck, Ryder had gone out to stock up on sale items, toilet paper this time, and he was oddly enthusiastic about it. Despite my dismay, they made themselves comfortable right in front of me. My mother-in-law looked at me and started demanding tea and snacks. Reluctantly, I prepared and brought them over, just as Ryder came back. "Both of you are here?" He glanced at me, clearly surprised. They had just arrived. I communicated with my eyes. Ryder gently hinted that he wanted them to leave soon, but my in-laws dodged the hint and stayed. Eventually, I ended up preparing both lunch and dinner, and after devouring even the dessert, they finally left. Both Ryder and I were weirdly exhausted, slumping in the living room. The toilet paper still lay in the hallway, a sad reminder. Would these unannounced visits continue? The thought was so depressing, I tried not to think about it, but my fears were confirmed. My in-laws began to come over in the morning without regard for our schedules, staying for 3 meals and snacks. The fridge emptied quickly, and the food expenses piled up. Worse still, Shelley and Jim started dictating the meals. "Hey, we had fish yesterday, so make it meat today." "But you weren't here yesterday." "I made dinner last night, so please, make it meat today." "I don't keep track of your meals from yesterday." Additionally, my mother-in-law occasionally inspected the room. Finding any speck of dirt or debris, she would immediately confront me. "The cleaning is not up to par." "I just cleaned yesterday." "There are hairs here. And here." I was utterly fed up with her nitpicking. "And look, there's limescale in the bathtub. Are you really cleaning?" It felt endless. If I ignored her, she would shriek, "Are you even listening?" I couldn't help but wonder why they even came. I desperately wished they would find someone else to bother. To make matters worse, if they didn't like a meal, they would throw it in the trash. I had carefully prepared a fish dish, spending a lot of time on it. I was near my breaking point. "How could you do this after I went to all that trouble? The seasoning is too strong. I told you to go easy on the salt. I prefer mild flavors. Haven't I always told you?" The seasoning was according to the recipe. They had never shown any concern for salt or mild flavors before now. If they were going to complain, they might as well not come at all, or better yet, cook for themselves. I am not a personal chef. A mix of anger and sadness welled up inside me. At that moment, Ryder stood up. "Dad, Mom, please don't say things like that. It's unbelievable that you would treat what Pam has made for us this way. He rebuked his parents, but they seemed even more outraged. It doesn't suit our taste, so it can't be helped. That's right. It's also your job to train your wife. Train? Ryder frowned. That's ridiculous. If you don't like Pam's cooking, then please leave now. Right now. He spoke with an intensity one had never seen before. Caught off guard by this unexpected outburst, his parents were at a loss. It was the first time I had seen such a gentleman so furious. Ryder took them by the hands, led them to the door, threw out their belongings, and locked them out. Returning to the living room with a flushed face, he murmured, "Sorry for startling you." And looked at me. "Your cooking is delicious. The best in the world. So, don't worry too much about it." He was trying to comfort me. Moved by his concern, I managed to hold back my tears. It's okay. Honestly, the snide remarks and presumptuous attitudes of my in-laws were painful. But they are Ryder's parents, whom I love dearly. I can't just disregard them, and someday will likely have to take care of them. If enduring this means peace, then so be it. I thought this as I swallowed my post-meal ice cream, mixed with tears. Ryder and I usually have weekends off and plan to relax at home. But since moving to this apartment, such days have become rare. One day, enduring another unannounced visit, we finally decided to move to a newly built detached house. We had saved enough money, and when we found the right property, we bought it immediately. We discussed the floor plan at length with the architect, aiming for a layout that made the most of the workflow without being too functional. I wanted to focus on the interiors, so I even chose to spend a bit more on the lighting. Looking through the catalogs, changing the wallpapers, the flooring, the toilets, and the baths to something within our budget, everything seemed appealing. Also, upon Ryder's suggestion, we decided to settle far from his parents' house. When re-evaluating our criteria during the property search, Ryder mentioned that my complexion worsens every time his parents visit. I don't mean to, but I'm happier when Pam is well. Let's put some distance between us and my parents. He said this with a bright smile. Indeed, having physical distance would spare us the stress of their unannounced visits. We would cross that bridge when something came up. His suggestion naturally lightened my heart. With this change in criteria, we miraculously found the perfect property. And as we moved forward with the purchase, everything proceeded smoothly, making all our previous struggles seem worthwhile. Enduring the harsh words of my in-laws might have even contributed to finding this house. Once we leave this apartment, things should get easier. I kept telling myself this, holding on to hope. Even before we started packing, I couldn't wait to start our new life. Sometimes we drove to the site, bringing refreshments for the workers. Ryder, equally excited, took the initiative in packing for our moving day. Including cleaning, it took about 2 weeks. Though our current 2DK apartment was small and we didn't have many belongings, packing still involved sorting through items for two. It's truly appreciated that you're willing to help out. Are we still using this dish? Let's throw out what we don't need. Right. The days of sharing meals with the in-laws are almost over. That thought alone gave me a bit of relief. Reducing the number of dishes a little shouldn't be a problem. On moving day, everything was ready when the movers arrived. A couple of burly guys efficiently carried out the boxes. Their loading was impressively smooth, and in no time, the apartment was empty. After watching the moving truck pull away, Ryder and I handed the keys to the landlord and expressed our thanks before leaving. When was the last time I felt this refreshed? On the way from the old apartment to our new home, neither Ryder nor I could contain our joy. No more uninvited entries by the in-laws. It would take about an hour by car to reach our new home. The movers had already arrived there and started unloading. We checked each box as it was brought in, figuring out which one goes to the living room and which to the bedroom. Despite the early summer heat and the sweat, it wasn't a hardship for us. We had been waiting for this moment for 25 years. The moment to live in our dream home. Once the last box was carried in, the movers quickly left. Wiping the sweat from our foreheads, we took a deep breath. "This is it, Pam. Our long-awaited home." Ryder said this deeply moved while rubbing his cheek on the floor. "Hey, it's not even cleaned yet. But you know, it smells like wood." I couldn't help but laugh seeing him sniff the floor. Someday, it'd be nice to get a cat. "Oh, you were thinking of that? Pam, I know you wanted to focus more on the interior. Decorate it any way you like." From small things to big plans, we discussed our future. Suddenly, he got up and stepped outside. "What's wrong?" When I followed him outside, Ryder gestured for me to stand next to him. Looking up at our new house, he puffed out his chest. "Let's live our second life together happily here." Yes. I felt reassured by my husband's unusually firm declaration. We'd toast to our new life if we could, but we restrained ourselves and waited for the next delivery. We had ordered new furniture and appliances to coincide with the move. They were scheduled to arrive this afternoon. About an hour after we arrived, a pleasant doorbell rang. It must be the furniture. While unpacking, Ryder and I exchanged a grin. I stopped my hands, trying to contain my excitement, and opened the front door. "Thank you." "Oh." I intended to greet the delivery workers, but it was the in-laws who stood there. They glanced at me amusingly and peered into the house from the doorway. "Oh, what a lovely home. Let us have a look." Pushing past me, they barged in. "Don't be so distant. You could have invited us in." They carelessly instructed me to fix their scattered shoes at the entryway. How? Why? My mind went blank. We hadn't told them our new address. Ryder wouldn't have told them either, so how did they find out? My heart pounded and sweat wouldn't stop. "Pam, the furniture is..." "Oh. Dad, Mom, why are you here?" Ryder emerged in the hallway to find his parents. "Why? You told us, didn't you?" "I didn't say a word." "What are you talking about? When we were at the old apartment, you had documents in your bag, right? Did you peek at them without permission?" "They were there, so I saw them." They seemed determined to claim it was unintentional. They noted down the new address from those documents and came here. "Come on, show us around quickly." "Dad, please don't just walk in. We're not even done unpacking." Ryder frantically tried to stop them. "This is our home." Yet, the in-laws thought nothing of entering without permission. Why would they just barge in like this? It felt like they were stomping right through my heart, and I glared at them. "Please, both of you, don't come any further." My voice trembled as I tried to insist, but they wouldn't listen. "What are you talking about? Such a bad daughter-in-law." "That's right. After all, it's your fault for moving without telling us. Isn't it also wrong to enter someone's home without permission? A son and daughter-in-law's home is the same as ours, isn't it? Isn't there a room for us too? That's too presumptuous. Please, just go home today." Ryder raised his voice. However, Jim seemed genuinely puzzled. "Why? Are you planning to have a housewarming party, just the two of you? How ungrateful." "It's not that. We're in the middle of unpacking, and it's not a good time to entertain you, Dad and Mom." "Don't make excuses. Has this daughter-in-law made you strange, Ryder?" The house was still a mess, furniture and appliances hadn't arrived yet. It's astonishing they expect to be entertained without even having groceries. Such brazen audacity. My husband was trying to explain politely to his father to not enter the house, trying not to provoke him. But finally, Jim could no longer contain himself and shouted, "Shut up," as he raised his fist. It was a flash from the past. I remembered a time in my childhood, in the apartment where I lived with my parents. I don't know what caused it, but my father shouted, "Shut up," and raised his fist at my mother. I think I saw it from my mother's arms. She pleaded while crying. "Stop! Don't hit this child!" The sight was like a running race, my legs trembling. My mind went blank, and in a state of panic, I ran out of the house barefoot. "Pam, where are you going?" Ignoring my husband's voice, I started running. I could see people passing by looking at me. Ryder was chasing after me from behind. Near our new home was a railroad crossing, and I ran there frantically. From a distance, I faintly heard the clank-clang of the warning bell. The barrier gate was slowly descending right in front of me. The flashing red light caught my eye, and I realized a train was coming. But even though I tried to stop, my legs wouldn't listen. I had to escape. I had to escape from Jim. In the next moment, I had jumped into the middle of the crossing. Nearby, a passing lady was reaching for the emergency button. Everything seemed to be moving in slow motion. "Pam!" Before I could blink, I was grabbed by the hand and pulled back. "Ah!" I fell on my bottom just as the barrier gate fully lowered. With a roaring noise, the train passed by. It all happened within a few seconds. As the warning bell stopped, it felt like time started flowing normally again. Breathless, without bothering to fix my disheveled hair, I turned around. There was Ryder, also breathless and sitting on his bottom. "I'm glad. I made it in time," he muttered, tears barely visible in his eyes. Some neighbors, alerted by the commotion, started to gather. The lady who tried to press the emergency button looked pale. Apparently, I looked so pale that someone suggested calling an ambulance. But fortunately, I didn't have a single scratch. Ryder was also unharmed and safe. He joked that we'd both probably have sore muscles from all the running tomorrow. Right after moving in, we were jokingly labeled as a couple that's hard on the heart by the neighbors. As we were surrounded by neighbors at our new home, we saw figures at the doorway. It was the in-laws. They stood there, staring blankly at us, not understanding what had just happened. After the commotion, the in-laws berated me severely, but Ryder denounced them strongly. "Didn't I talk to you before about Pam's family? What, making a big deal out of it? It was normal back in the day." "That's right. Just swinging a fist. It doesn't matter what was normal in the past. Just go home for today, please." Ryder drove them out of the house. The in-laws grumbled as they reluctantly left. I felt guilty and sat down in the living room, hugging my knees. But on the other hand, I was also relieved that Ryder had stood up for me so passionately. When he came back, I must have had a confused expression. "I really can't understand them. It's embarrassing that those two are my actual parents," he said, indignant, and sat down beside me. The room was scattered with unpacked boxes. We sat looking at them for a while. Not sure how much time had passed, I glanced at Ryder. Seeing my middle-aged husband sitting cross-legged made me unexpectedly laugh. He suddenly said, "Sorry. It was my carelessness." He was probably referring to how the in-laws got to know this house's address. "I didn't think they were the kind of people to snoop around. I'm really sorry. It's not your fault. There's more to it." He began to cry. "Because of my parents, you were reminded of your past and had to suffer." I couldn't say anything. Indeed, I had a flashback due to my father-in-law's actions, but I didn't blame Ryder. "I'm really sorry. I'll reconsider my distance with my parents from now on." Later, he declared that he would cut off all ties with his parents except for funerals. It must have been a tough decision to cut ties with his own parents. I told him he didn't need to go that far for me, but he was adamant. "You are the most important to me." His words somehow made me feel saved, and I didn't say anything more. Those were his usual words. I decided to trust them. After declaring this to me, Ryder also told his parents over the phone. Of course, they were outraged and started making a fuss about coming over right then. But he didn't back down. "I won't go to the police this time, but understand this, if you ever visit my home again, I won't hesitate to call the police." As soon as the words police and report were mentioned, the in-laws fell silent. "If that's how you feel, do as you like." After a silence, his mother hung up. Since then, there have been no visits or calls from them. Being ostracized by Ryder, the in-laws have no other relatives to rely on. Both Jim and Shelley live on a meager pension, hardly enough to cover their living expenses, as they have complained before. The in-laws are still living in hardship to this day. Meanwhile, Ryder and I continue to live peacefully. On weekends, just like before, besides going shopping, we spend much of our time relaxing at home. On a sunny day after the rain, we stood in front of the railroad crossing. It was on our way back from shopping. As the warning bell stopped and the barrier lifted, we always talked about that day every time we crossed here. Ryder always grips my hand tightly when we cross, worried that I might jump again. "It's okay, I won't go anywhere again." I smiled and looked straight at him as I said this. My gentle and soft-spoken husband looked like a hero from a movie or drama just then. That contrast made me fall for him all over again, but that's still a secret I keep to myself.